I dropped my husband off at the airport, thinking it was just another business trip. But just as I was about to leave, my 6-year-old son squeezed my hand tight and whispered, "Mama, don't go back home. This morning, I heard Daddy planning something really bad against us. Please believe me this time." I believed him, and we hid. And what I saw next made me panic. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you're watching this video from. We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. The fluorescent lights of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport were hurting my eyes that Thursday night. I was tired. That kind of tired that comes from deep inside. You know, it's not just sleepiness. It's an exhaustion of the soul that I'd been dragging around for months without really understanding why. My husband, Quasi, stood beside me with that perfect smile he always wore in public. Impeccable gray custom suit, leather briefcase in hand, the expensive cologne I'd gifted him for his last birthday lingering in the air. To anyone in that terminal, we were the definition of Black excellence. The power couple. He, the successful executive, me, the dedicated wife, sending him off before a major business trip to Chicago. If only they knew. By my side, his sweaty little hand holding mine firmly, was Kenzo, my 6-year-old son. My entire world. He was too still that night, quieter than usual. And mind you, Kenzo has always been an observant child, one of those kids who prefers watching to participating. But that night, there was something different in his eyes, a fear I couldn't name. "This meeting in Chicago is crucial, babe," Quasi said, pulling me in for a calculated hug. Everything about him was calculated. I just didn't know it yet. 3 days tops and I'm back. "You hold down the fort here, right?" Hold down the fort, as if my life was just that, holding everything together while he built his empire. But I smiled. Smiled like I always did because that's what was expected of me. "Of course, we'll be fine," I replied, feeling Kenzo squeeze my hand even tighter. Quasi crouched down in front of our son. He placed both hands on Kenzo's shoulders in that way he always did when he wanted to look like the perfect father. "And you little man, you take care of Mama for me." "All right." Kenzo didn't answer. He just nodded, his eyes fixed on his father's face. That look. It was as if he were memorizing every detail, every feature, as if he were seeing Quasi for the very last time. I should have noticed. I should have felt that something was wrong right then and there. But we never notice the signs when they come from the people we love, do we? We think we know the person. That after 8 years of marriage, nothing can surprise us. How naive I was. Quasi kissed Kenzo's forehead, then mine. "Love you both. See you soon." And then he turned, grabbed his carry-on, and walked toward the TSA checkpoint. Kenzo and I stood there, frozen in the middle of that crowd of goodbyes and reunions, watching him disappear. When I finally couldn't see Quasi anymore, I took a deep breath. "Come on, baby. Let's go home." My voice came out weary. I just wanted to get back to our house in Buckhead, kick off these uncomfortable heels I'd worn to look the part, and maybe watch something on TV until sleep took over. We started walking down the long airport concourse, our steps echoing on the polished floor. Kenzo was even quieter now, and I could feel the tension in his small body through the hand holding mine. "Everything okay, sweetie? You're very quiet today." He didn't answer immediately. We kept walking, passing the closed shops, the flight monitors. People rushing with rolling suitcases. It was only when we got near the exit, when the automatic glass doors were already in sight, that he stopped. He stopped so abruptly I almost tripped. "Kenzo, what's wrong?" That's when he looked at me. And God, I will never forget that look. It was pure terror. The kind of fear a 6-year-old shouldn't even know exists. "Mama," he whispered, his voice trembling. "We can't go back home." My heart did a strange flip in my chest. I crouched down in front of him, holding his little arms. "What do you mean, baby?" "Of course, we're going home. It's late. You need to sleep, don't you?" His voice came out louder, desperate. A few people turned their heads to look at us. He swallowed hard and continued, now in an urgent whisper, "Mama, please. We can't go back. Believe me this time, please. This time." Those 2 words hurt because it was true. Weeks ago, Kenzo had told me he saw a strange car parked in front of our house. The same car, 3 nights in a row. I told him it was a coincidence. Days later, he swore he heard Daddy talking quietly in his home office about solving the problem once and for all. I told him it was business stuff, that he shouldn't listen to grown-up conversations. I didn't believe him. And now he was begging me, tears starting to form in those deep brown eyes. This time I believe you, Kenzo. Explain to me what's going on. My voice came out steadier than I felt inside. He looked around as if afraid someone might hear him. Then he pulled my arm, making me lean in even closer to him, and whispered in my ear. This morning, really early, I woke up before everyone else. I went to get water and I heard Daddy in his office. He was on the phone. Mama, he said that tonight when we were sleeping, something bad was going to happen. That he needed to be far away when it happened. That we weren't going to be in his way anymore. My blood ran cold. Kenzo, are you sure? Are you sure about what you heard? He nodded desperately. He said there were people who were going to take care of it. He said he was finally going to be free. Mama, his voice. It wasn't Daddy's voice. It was different. Scary. My first instinct was to deny it. To say it was his imagination, that he had misunderstood, that Quasi would never. But then I remembered things. Little things I had ignored. Quasi increasing his life insurance policy 3 months ago, saying it was just a precaution for generational wealth. Quasi insisting that I put everything, the house in Buckhead, the car, even our joint savings account, solely in his name. It helps with taxes, babe. Quasi getting angry when I mentioned I wanted to go back to work. It's not necessary, Ira. I handle everything. The strange calls he answered locked in his office. The increasingly frequent trips, and that conversation I accidentally overheard 2 weeks ago when I thought he was asleep. He was murmuring into the phone. Yeah, I know the risk, but there's no other way. It has to look accidental. At that moment, I convinced myself it was about work, about some risky investment. But what if it wasn't? I looked at Kenzo, at that terrified face, the rolling tears, the trembling hands, and I made the most important decision of my life. Okay, son, I believe you. The relief that washed over his face was instant but short-lived. So, what are we going to do? Good question. My brain was racing. If Kenzo was right, and every cell in my body was starting to scream that he was, going back home was a death sentence. But where to go? Whose house? All our friends were Quasi's friends, too. Part of the same social circle. My family lived in North Carolina. If it was all a terrible misunderstanding. But what if it wasn't? Let's go to the car, I decided. But we're not going inside the house. We're going to watch from a distance, just to be sure. Okay. Kenzo nodded. I took his hand again and we walked to the parking deck. My heart was beating so hard I could hear the blood pulsing in my ears. Every step felt like it weighed a ton. The cool night air hit me as we stepped out. The parking deck was dimly lit with just a few scattered cars. Ours was in a corner, a silver SUV that Quasi had insisted on buying last year. A safe car for my family, he'd said. Safe. What a bitter joke. We got in. I buckled Kenzo in, then myself. My hands were shaking so bad it took me 3 tries to start the ignition. Mama. Kenzo's voice was small in the back seat. Yes, baby. Thank you for believing me. I looked in the rearview mirror. He was curled up in the seat, hugging the dinosaur backpack he took everywhere. I'm always going to believe you, son. Always. And in that moment, I realized I should have said that sooner. I should have listened to him from the start. I drove in silence. I didn't go straight to our driveway. Instead, I took a back route through the neighborhood, finding a spot on a parallel street that offered a view of our house through the trees without us being easily seen. I parked in a dark spot between 2 large oaks. From there, we could see our home. Everything looked normal. The street lights illuminated the sidewalk, our manicured lawn, the porch where Quasi and I drank coffee on Sundays, the window of Kenzo's room with the superhero curtains he had picked out. Home. Or at least that's what I thought it was. I turned off the engine and the lights. Total darkness. Total silence except for our breathing. And now we wait, I whispered. Kenzo didn't say anything. He just kept looking out the window, eyes fixed on the house. And so we waited, not knowing that in less than an hour, Everything I thought I knew about my life was going to crumble. The dashboard clock read 10:17 p.m. When I started to question if I wasn't being completely ridiculous, there I was, hiding on a dark street with my 6-year-old, spying on my own house like we were in a bad movie. What kind of mother does this? What kind of wife suspects her own husband? Of what exactly? I couldn't even form the complete thought in my head. It was too absurd. Quasi never raised a hand to me, never yelled at Kenzo. He was a present father, a provider. But was he a loving husband? The question came out of nowhere and caught me off guard. When was the last time he looked at me with genuine affection? When did he ask how my day was and actually want to hear the answer? When did he touch me without it being mechanical automatic? When was the last time I felt loved and not just maintained? Mama, look. Kenzo's voice snapped me out of my thoughts. My heart spiked. What? What did you see? That car. I followed the direction of his finger. A vehicle was turning onto our street. But it wasn't just any car. It was a dark van. No decals, no front plate visible. The windows were tinted. So dark it was impossible to see who was inside. The van slowed down as it passed the houses, too slow to be someone just passing through. It was like it was hunting. My breath caught in my throat when the van stopped exactly in front of our house. It can't be, I whispered. It can't. But it was. The 2 front doors opened. 2 men stepped out. Even from a distance, even with the poor lighting, you could see they weren't technicians or delivery guys or anything normal. They wore dark clothes, hoodies up, and the way they moved was stealthy, calculated. They stood for a moment in front of our driveway gate, looking around. My instinct was to scream, call 911, do something, but I was paralyzed, watching like it was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. One of them, the taller one, reached into his pocket. I expected him to pull out a crowbar, some tool to force entry. That would be a robbery. I could deal with a robbery. I could call the police, file a report, move on. But what he pulled out of his pocket made my world collapse. A key. He had a key to our house. Mama. Kenzo's voice trembled. How do they have a key? I couldn't answer. I was too busy trying not to throw up. The man unlocked the front door as if he owned the place. No forcing, no breaking, simply unlocked it. Only 3 people had a key to our house. Me, Quasi, and the spare key that was in his home office, inside the desk drawer that was always locked. The 2 men entered my home into the house where I slept yesterday, where I made grits and eggs for Kenzo this morning, where I felt safe. They didn't turn on the lights. I could see flashlight beams dancing behind the curtains. They were looking for something. Or worse, they were preparing something. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen, watching. It could have been 5 minutes or 50. Time had lost meaning. All that existed was that vision. 2 strangers inside my house with keys only my husband could have given them. Then I smelled it. At first I thought I was imagining it, but it got stronger. A chemical smell, pungent gasoline. Mama, what's that smell? Kenzo asked. And that's when I saw smoke. It started small, just a thin thread coming out of the living room window, then another from the kitchen window. And then I saw the glow. That sinister orange glow that can only mean one thing. Fire. No. I got out of the car without thinking. No. 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 Kenzo's hand pulled me back. Mama, no. You can't go there. He was right. I knew it. But it was my house. My things. The photos from when Kenzo was born. My wedding dress stored in the closet. The drawings Kenzo made that I stuck on the fridge. The quilt my grandmother stitched before she passed. All burning. The flames grew fast. Terrifyingly fast. In a matter of minutes, the living room was totally engulfed. The fire licked the walls, shattered the windows, climbed to the 2nd floor where Kenzo's room was. That's when the siren started. Someone must have seen the smoke and called the fire department. The dark van sped off, lights off, disappearing around the corner seconds before the first fire truck appeared. I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Kenzo was hugging me from behind, his little face buried in my back, sobbing. Kenzo was right, I murmured. You were right, baby. You were right. If we had gone home, if I hadn't believed him, we would be inside there right now, sleeping, unaware. And those men would have I couldn't complete the thought. My legs gave out and I fell to my knees right there in the middle of the dark street, watching my life turn to ash. My phone vibrated in my pocket. With trembling hands, I picked it up. It was a text from Quasi. "Hey babe, just landed. Hope you and Kenzo are sleeping well. Love you guys. See you soon." I read the message once, twice, 3 times. Every word was a knife. Every heart emoji was poison. He knew. Of course he knew. He was in another state building his perfect alibi while hiring people to kill us, to burn us alive while we slept. And then he would come back as the devastated Huss. The life insurance, the land, the bank accounts. That's what Kenzo heard him say on the phone. I'm finally going to be free. Free of me. Free of his son. The nausea came with force. I turned around and threw up right there on the curb. Everything I had in my stomach came out along with whatever illusion I still had about my marriage. When I could finally stop, I wiped my mouth with my sleeve and looked at Kenzo. He was sitting on the curb, hugging his knees, watching the house burn. Tears rolled down his face, but he wasn't sobbing anymore. He was just watching. A 6-year-old shouldn't have that expression, that terrible premature understanding that people who should love you can want to hurt you. I sat beside him and pulled him into a tight hug. "I'm sorry," I whispered into his hair. "I'm sorry for not believing you sooner. I'm sorry for everything." He held on to me as if I were the only solid thing in a world that had turned upside down. And maybe I was. "What are we going to do now, Mama?" That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? What do you do when you discover that the man who promised to love and protect you actually wants you dead? We couldn't go home. A home didn't even exist anymore. We couldn't go to the police. Quasi had an ironclad alibi, and it was just me and the word of a 6-year-old against his. We couldn't go to friends or family. Everyone would think I was crazy in shock from the fire, making things up. And Quasi was free, flying back at that very moment, probably practicing the look of shock and sadness he was going to use when he discovered the tragedy. We needed help. Help from someone Quasi didn't know, someone who could understand, someone who knew how to deal with what? Attempted murder, conspiracy. That's when I remembered my dad, Grandpa Langston, before he passed 2 years ago, had given me a card. It was on a rough day right after his cancer diagnosis. He called me to his hospital room, took my hand, and said, "Ira, I don't trust that husband of yours. Never have. If one day you need help, real help, find this person." The card had a name, Zenara Aper, attorney at law, and a phone number. At the time, I was offended. How could my dad not trust we? Quasi, who was so attentive to him, who visited him in the hospital, who paid for the best doctors. But now I understood. My father saw something I refused to see, and he left me a way out. I took my phone again. Battery was at 23%. I needed to make a decision fast. "Kenzo, remember that card Grandpa gave me? The one I kept in my wallet?" He nodded. "I'm going to call the person on it. She's going to help us." At least I hoped so. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number. 3 rings, 4. It was going to voicemail when a female voice, raspy but firm, answered, "Hello, Attorney Okafor speaking. Attorney. Miss Oliver, my name is Ira. Ira Vance. You don't know me, but my father. My father was Langston Vance. He gave me your number. I need help. Bad." There was a pause. "Then Ira Langston told me about you. Where are you?" My house just burned down. I'm on the street with my son and my husband. My husband tried to kill us." Another longer pause. When she spoke again, her voice was different, more urgent. "Are you safe right now? Can you drive?" "Yes." "Then write down this address." Attorney Zuna's office was in an old brick building in the Sweet Auburn district. The kind of place you pass by without noticing. It didn't have a flashy sign, just a small faded plaque. Z. Aper, Legal Counsel. It was almost midnight when I parked in front. The street was deserted, only a few street lights working. Kenzo had fallen asleep in the back seat during the drive, exhausted from crying. I had to carry him. Before I rang the bell, the door opened. A woman stood there. She must have been about 60, gray locks pulled back in a bun, reading glasses hanging from a chain. She wore a simple blouse and jeans like she had been woken up, but her eyes were alert, analyzing every detail of me and Kenzo. Ira, yes, come in quickly. I obeyed. She locked the door behind us with 3 different deadbolts. The office smelled of old books and strong coffee. There were stacks of files everywhere, old cabinets, a table full of papers. Put the boy on the sofa over there, she instructed. There's a blanket on the chair. I laid Kenzo down carefully. I covered him. He kept sleeping, his face still streaked with tears. Coffee? She offered. I was going to refuse, but she was already pouring 2 cups. She handed me one and pointed to the chair in front of her desk. Sit down and tell me everything from the beginning. Leave nothing out. And I told her. I told her about Quasi's trip, about Kenzo's whisper at the airport, about the decision to hide and watch the house, the men with the keys, the fire. Quasi's text pretending to care while knowing we should be dead. Attorney Zuna didn't interrupt me once. She just listened, fingers interlaced under her chin, eyes fixed on me. When I finished, she stayed silent for a long moment. Your father.